A historic home that once stood in the city will stand tall again, all thanks to a local nonprofit. Thanks for joining us for the news at 5:30. I'm Julie Bragg.
And I'm Leland Pender. Our Jake Burns is live now with the story of Abraham Skipwith, a formerly enslaved black man who became known as the father of Jackson Ward, and tells us about the organization that's helping to preserve his memory. Jake?
Well, Abraham Skipwith, remember, built his home in 1790 in Jackson Ward. Remember, he was a black man, and this was in the years immediately following the American Revolution. Now, the site where this historic site is planned and where they will plan to rebuild his cottage very, very soon is not where it originally stood in Jackson Ward, and that is a big part of the point.
I think that Abraham Skipwith should be a household name.
Anjali Moon and Dr. Sisha Joy Moon have a plan for this space off Bates Street.
For us, we see Skipwith as a blueprint.
The co-founders of the JXN Project plan to reconstruct the Skipwith Roper Cottage here. In the 1780s, Abraham Skipwith, an enslaved black man, secured freedom for himself and his family, becoming the first black homeowner in Jackson Ward.
He is being black and American redefined in that particular time period.
His worldly acumen was just deeply impressive and not something that we typically attest to black people in the South in the 1700s.
The JXN Project uncovered Skipwith's will from 1797, spelling out the type of life he was able to carve out in the years following the American Revolution.
It is the fact that he left clothes, furniture, silver, gold. He had a gun. For me, though, my most prized possession within his will is the horse and buggy. I just have a very hard time wrapping my head around a black man riding around Richmond, Virginia in the late 1700s in his own horse and buggy, not in service
to someone else. We have very much one-dimensional narratives around blackness at the time, around what enslavement looked like, and it's certainly what the South looked like. And this gentleman offers a tremendous amount of complexity and complication to those stories that we've been taught.
But what came of Skipwith's home?
Jackson Ward is both a space of celebration, but also a cautionary tale.
It's a story tied directly to the history of Jackson Ward and the construction of I-95 directly through the neighborhood, once called the Harlem of the South. According to research by the JXN Project, Skipwith built his cottage right here on Duval Street in Jackson Ward. Skipwith's family owned the property until 1905 when it was sold to another family. The cottage was lived in until the 1950s, according to the JXN Project, but then that family was forcibly removed from the home so that the interstate could be built where the cottage once stood.
Jackson Wardians have these really sturdy shoulders. And we know that Maggie Walker, too, is standing on the shoulders of an Abraham Skipwith.
The JXN Project calls Skipwith the founding father of Jackson Ward. Through a land grant from the Maggie Walker Land Trust and a $1.5 million grant from the Mellon Foundation, they're reconstructing Skipwith's cottage here on the north side of the interstate.
So as we acknowledge, this space of tribute and remembrance and joy, let us not forget the reality of why we're here and why that home isn't still at 400 Duval Street.
The space will be a museum, but also have a place for community gathering and reflection. The Moons want to finish by 2026 the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution.
And it's going to help Black America and going to help this country as we are navigating who we are, who we're going to be, how we're going to be. Learning more about here and how it started, we think, can help to inform some of those answers.
We might also be able to use this project to help even change how historic preservation is handled. And how do we identify the black spaces that are worth saving, and making our histories more than mere markers along highways. With these grants and other contributions, the JXN Project says they're about 40% of their way to this Skipwith Roper homecoming goal. We have more information about that project on our website, WTVR.com.